Hey, welcome back to Sidewalk, Skyline podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rogers. The last episode, we introduced you to Kelly Franklin, and in part 2 of that interview today, she's going to talk more about human trafficking. So let's go to that interview right now.
All of a sudden, there was a big need in community. We'd seen almost 10,000 kids and youth through our gates between 2007 and 2013. And we just said, we have to answer this call. Mm-hmm. And I went away. Here's the problem. I went to conference. I went to a conference in Toronto.
Pastor's conference?
No, I still didn't get, I still didn't fit in that mold very well.
What kind of conference?
It was called Women on the Front Lines in Canada.
That would be you.
I went with a friend that ran Gospel Lighthouse stores. I went to be under the radar and just, I was tired. I was kind of starting to hear what God wanted me to do. And I just kind of heard this little, you're going to offer safe space to kids that have been pulled into prostitution. I'm like, okay, God, let's run that up the flagpole with my husband. He's like, no. Nope, they're going to live on the farm. We're going to minister and love people, and we're going to love as hard on them when they're unlovely as somebody loved on me when I was unlovely. And Kevin, I was unlovely. Yeah. You know that lady I told you about that welcomed me in her house and, taught me how to make meat pies and do my budget and, look after my son's brown skin with lots of cream and blah, 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 blah. The first 2 weeks that she was in my life, I was canvassing their house to look for unlocked windows and checking the schedule on the fridge to see when they wouldn't be home to break in.
Wow.
The offering plate in the church that I went to was my ATM. Yeah. And eventually, well, it was. And eventually I offered to train the ushers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
pretty funny. I
great.
drove the church bus.
Yeah.
I looked after seniors. I did whatever it took. So when I got to this place where we're doing ministry on the farm, and by the way, I'd been a pastor. I was a director at Royal View in London, and I was like the Pied Piper there, and poor Gary Fest didn't know what to do with me when I had more kids coming in the door than he had in the sanctuary, and we were taking over. And
that's
God,
a great problem.
Well, God was just moving.
Yeah.
We just keep bringing the families together.
Yeah.
And he was an incredible leader. I learned so much from him. But he didn't know what to do with me some days, and I love him. He's still in my life as a mentor. I stopped by his house this morning and picked stuff up from his porch. He actually picked up these hats.
These hats are great.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
I was like, what are we going to do next, God? Okay, George isn't going to do this. Well, we'll sit in on this message. And there was a prophetic word over Canada that was spoken about daughters. And I thought, how can we see a move of God across Canada with daughters? I know the abortion issue is huge, so yeah, we're trying to make sure girls are going to make it through that. But the enemy's scooping them here. And somebody stood at the front that was going to strip clubs in Toronto and giving them white roses. And she said, after 2 years of doing that, and she looked like a Lee press-on Pentecostal at the time up there, I thought, ooh, she went to the strip club? Yep. She did what she thought she was supposed to do, and she went and loved on girls. And it got to the point when she missed a week, the owner of the strip club would call and say, the girls haven't seen you. Is everything okay? Wow. And they'd want, because even though they were still entrenched, they still needed love. Yeah. And non-judgmental love. So she stands at this conference, and I'm trying to hide between my sassy brown and black sisters from Jane Finch churches who have the big hats, so I can hide behind them really good. And all of a sudden, it was like the Red Seas, they parted to use the washroom. Yeah. And I'm on the hotline with the speaker, like 3 rows back. And I'm sitting here, and she says, for the first time in 2 years, a girl wants to get out, and there's nowhere that I know where she can go. Does anybody know where she can go? And here's me blubbering baby.
Yep.
I'm pulling my hat down to hide, and it says Farmtown, Canada. And I'm going, yes, God, I know, but I can't. And my friend, Marna Mudford, who owns all the Gospel Lighthouse stores, is poking me. Ha, isn't this funny? Ha, ha, God knew you're going to be here today. And I was like, okay, what's happening? And all of a sudden, my phone rang at the lunch break. And my husband said, you know what? I prayed about this. We've already worked with a lot of girls and had a lot of girls in our life at this farm. That this is their story. I just didn't want to admit it.
So the first phone call is, no way, Jose. The second phone call is, I prayed about it. Yes.
And this is why I waited 12 years from the time I said yes to Jesus till I said yes to getting married.
Yeah, well,
because I needed a praying husband to be with me.
The wait was worth it.
Well, he only waited 6 weeks. Yeah. We met and got married in 6 weeks, right?
Yeah.
I told you nothing's normal, Kev.
Well, your wait till you were 39.
Yeah.
And then God sent you the right guy.
No kidding.
Yeah. Shout out to George, who's just he's the quiet one in the relationship, is he?
Not with me.
Not with you?
No.
Okay. Well, okay. So now, so God's starting a new chapter when you're at this conference, and that led into what you're now doing, which is a ministry called Courage for Freedom.
We decided we didn't want to keep the name because people kept calling to see if we were doing the plowing match. It's true.
Yeah, you're right. There's this big shift point where, okay, you can do all these really cool things and help a lot of kids, but then Jesus says, wait a second, though. There's a lost sheep, and it's kind of like you had to leave the 99 to go after the one.
Well, and I had to expose my own story. That it's still a little egregious some days.
Yeah. Because
there's still days that I'm recalling things. But it's okay. I have God and a husband and a great community. And I'm not ashamed to cry. I love tears. When I pray, I just leak. Your dad found this out.
Yeah.
He's ministering at a church where I'm attending. And I'll pray as I cry as hard as I pray. And I just let her rip. And I just found that tears are cleansing. So we just started Courage for Freedom and said, we see a gap in community, we're going to knock at it. And we started out the gate, and we saw responses and communities that wanted to help. And we saw marked changes, especially in the lives of those that never thought they'd have value, which is me. Kevin, look where I'm sitting. I'm in your church with my husband. We just left podcasting with my member of parliament and the mayor of the city that I now call friends, who are asking me, what can they do to help? Really, God? I think he has the best sense of humor out of anyone. He can use me. He can use anybody.
I just noticed your ink on the arm. Courage, freedom. And you know, I like that name because I don't think a lot of people realize how much courage it takes to step into freedom.
Yeah,
right?
I've never been accused of being quiet. Actually, when I was entrenched, I was very quiet because I was controlled and manipulated. But it's like God flipped the switch and I don't shut up. And I will fight until somebody can fight for themselves because God fought for me. I know now that there were people interceding for me. I can see back all along the journey until all those scales were from my eyes where I could see the truth about myself. And I can tell you that the number one thing that tries to tear at the work that I get to do, I could send you a list this big of accolades that don't mean as much as taking a girl to the barn and watching her heal. Or now George sometimes says, Kelly, this is your anointing. You are called into this. Sometimes you don't even need the horses. There's just something about your ability to connect and hear what they need to hear to start directing their life to accept that love and let it in. And I'll tell you, it happens, well, 2 nights ago, this morning I had to talk to, so I just thank God there are so many open doors and favor that I've had impact with the government and with communities and police officers and families and other religious organizations and Muslim sisters and brothers across in Dearborn that needed training in this, and let me train their community in their mosque.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's great. That's great, Kelly.
Whoever thought that?
So let's talk a little bit about Courage for Freedom, the organization. What kind of, you need to help educate me and anybody else that's listening on what human trafficking looks like in Canada, is there, how pervasive is it? How invisible is it?
Yeah.
And then what are some of the steps that you're taking to create awareness, but also to create strategies and supports to help people get out? So I just asked you probably for about an hour worth of information there.
I was going to say, do we have overnight accommodation? Just kidding, Kev. Just if I forget a point.
Yeah, there's a hotel somewhere in the city that you'll be
really
staying at.
Oh
apparently.
My goodness.
Yeah.
If I forget one of the points to respond, just kick it back in. But I can tell you that right now, human trafficking and sexual exploitation has become the number 2 grossing crime in Canada. It is now in front of drugs. So it's the number 2. So number 1 is guns, weapons, arms.
That's where the big money is.
Big money.
Number 2 is in
human trafficking.
Drugs is number 3.
Drugs has bounced down to number 3.
Oh, come on.
You want to know why? How many times can I sell you drugs, Kevin?
Endless.
How many? Once.
Until I die.
I can sell you one drug. I can sell you this drug.
Yeah.
Once. Once you take it, how many times can I sell you this girl? $250K a year per girl, tax-free. It's money.
Oh, dear.
And it's lust. And it's brokenness. And it's pornography. And it's there's an onion. And once you start to pull back all the issues underneath this, it's the dog, the chicken and the egg. Was it addiction that led somebody to be engaged in this, or did they become addicted to deal with the fact that they couldn't deal with what was happening to their life?
Right.
When they're coerced and manipulated, was it a poverty issue? What was happening in their community that there weren't other choices available to them, or that they thought this was the only choice available to them? So we look at all the issues. Was it mental health? Is it coercion? Is it greed? You know what my answer is? Yes.
Yes.
My answer is yes. Everybody says they're a hub. You know what I say? Yes. Everywhere where anybody has somebody that has a phone, they have the potential to be exploited and manipulated in a way that would lead them to take a picture of themselves or do something that would give somebody a way to extort them, shame them, embarrass them, isolate them. Take the training, community.
Yeah.
Take it. It's not Liam Neeson showing up to rescue the girl that got picked up in the white van. That's 1%. Snatch and grab. The rest is relationship built. And we need to understand that it's a psychological crime before it's a physical crime. And I'm not talking about sex work. I'm talking about being trafficked. And even those that say they're sex workers, they can tell you there's a difference between being trafficked. They will tell you that there is a difference. So my thing is that 68% of all trafficking in Canada is under 25, so 24 and under. Now, how many is at 24 had a fully formed brain? Frontal lobe, cerebral cortex.
Yeah.
It's just starting. Add trauma, the neurons are fried. So even though they might be 24 and having had this happen, they're still 13 because they're their trauma age, because they have complex trauma until they start to heal. So I started to look at this and do lots of work. We have a safe space, we have horses, we actually train frontline support workers and specialists all over. And we have a task force across Canada to now wake us all up to know that whether you're on page 1 or on page 250, whether you go to church or don't yet, I love it, or you're in an industry that intersects with this or not, that you can be part of the solution. So for me, I got tired probably around 2019, 2020, when we ran something called Project En Route across the province. And we blew everything up in media and started the conversation about what a corridor looks like. Now...
So for people listening outside of Ontario,
yeah,
our major 400 highways are, if you're American, you'd say our interstates.
Yeah.
But our major highways, and then we have service centers that are called en route.
it's where you stop.
Stop to get your
we
your
decided
coffee and
that
your burger.
somebody that's being
Yeah.
trafficked, that's being moved across our province, and sometimes from another province or even a state, when they come in, they need the same three things to take care of those that they are criminalizing and victimizing. They need to stop for gas, they need food, and they need the bathroom. So if we could educate our communities on what this stuff looks like and how not to run up and cause somebody to go missing.
Yep.
Because if somebody that's been trafficked even makes eye contact with you, it could put them in danger. So we don't need to go and be Cagney and Lacey. Oh, I'm dating myself. Wow, Kelly.
What is this Cagney and Lacey? Go ahead.
They're chick cops, okay? So, Kev, can we edit that, please? So
No.
we just need to be the eyes and ears in our community. We need to put the Canadian hotline in our phone, because we have a hotline across Canada that if you call anonymously, they will call into local police. Now, if you think you're seeing something dangerous, don't make two steps. Don't be afraid to use your name. Call the cops.
Yeah.
And let them do what they know. Now,
You're not going to get in trouble if you're suspicious.
if you're wrong, who cares? There's someone paid to answer their phones.
Yeah.
But if you're right, maybe you'll prevent somebody from being in a shallow grave. That's the reality.
That's a worthy risk to take.
Yeah, and I think
Yes.
it's the price of being citizens.
I think so, yeah.
I started to get tired because I saw more and more girls. Since 2019, I've worked with 350 girls and their families from every demographic, big towns, city centers, small, different ethnicities, different religions, different socio. You pick it, we've worked with them. But what I see that's common to all is still the level of stigma and shame that they can't go back and heal in their communities. You know, Kev, we come really far with mental health, right?
Yeah.
So now we're like, I have a friend, Stephanie. She says she's a bipolar survivor. And she jokes around about what she needs to do to work out or go take goat yoga. And everybody in her socials is like, hooray! You know, for myself, I was an addict. And I can say I'm blah, blah, blah. Remember, I'm not good with math. Blah, 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 years clean and sober. Or somebody else says 2 years sobriety, and everybody's like, hooray! Fast forward to the issue we deal with. Some dad puts up on his wall, it's been 8 days since my daughter's bought or sold. Hooray! First thing that happens, why were you a crappy parent? Why didn't your daughter do this? Why didn't you parent better?
Always looking to
Oh, you're the divorce parents.
dissect everybody's
You're the
problem
parents
and
that
find a
don't
cause
show
and-
up at church. You don't tithe. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, I want to slam that stigma. And I want to use my story of what happened to me and what happened to me and the girls that I know that were killed, that you can look their names up. When things were happening to me in Alexandria Park and South Regent Park in the 80s, their lives were taken. So I know the cost of us being quiet, but what's really weird, everybody wants to kind of own the issue, but they're not equipped to. So I can't keep working on this and watch everybody, all my resources, my time, everybody's, churches that want to help, industry that wants to help, hotel motel associations that want to help, truckers against trafficking. Everybody wants to help, but we just keep pouring these resources through this bucket, and there's more people falling through it. And, I talk about girls because that's a demographic I work with, but there's more and more young boys and LGBTQ plus community. Yeah. We can't victimize them because that's the community they come from.
Right.
It's because they don't have as many supports, so they're more susceptible. Just like 50% of all human trafficking in Canada is Indigenous, when they make up 4% of our population. And the word prostitution is nowhere in any Indigenous language. We introduced it.
Oh, yay.
Through patriarchy, misogyny, and colonialism. So I look at the system structure and say, well, I'm looking at the newspapers, Kev, and I'm seeing the racialized pictures of pimps and gang people. They're really good at showing. And who ever thought that a mugshot is going to look good anyways? I have one. Okay, it's worse than my passport photo, honestly.
Yeah.
So
take a person when they are most defeated and worn out, and then take their picture.
Put them on the front page.
Yeah.
And then blame them for all the woes for your community with sexual exploitation of children. Well, this is my question. I know you follow me on social media, so you've seen this. So who bought the girl that was under 18? You want to know what the demographic is?
I probably don't want to know.
You're sitting, so
tell me.
I think we're okay. Are you stable?
Well, that's questionable. But
for the purpose of the interview.
So who bought the underage girl?
Over 60% of buyers, it's recorded, they are Caucasian male, married or grandparents, college, university, educated, entrepreneurial, low median income, 75K to 150K.
Wow.
Does that change the conversation we should be having?
I see it, actually. Yeah, I see it outside the door of our church. We have some women that work on the corner. It's not a big scene, but there'll be one or two often.
It's just their pickup corner after they get their call, right?
Yep, and many times I've watched that very demographic you described are the ones pulling up
in a nice car.
Yeah, nice car
with a baby seat in the back.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this is a problem that we need. I just thank God. Yeah. I think my addiction caused me not to think in a straight line, and God had the last laugh because I see things in a non-linear fashion. Yeah. And so I'm going to tackle this with everything I can going forward. COVID caused us to do this. Let's look at it, but can we leverage ourselves? Like in a tree stand, or when we raise our kids, can we kneel down and see what they're seeing to get a different perspective? And because if we're just going to keep managing this the way we did and think we're going to just start a safe house and sing Kumbaya and that's going to help, there's a lot more layers to that onion. Yeah. And we need to be equipped to deal with every single one if we're going to promise somebody that we're going to journey with them. Because the worst thing we could do as Christians is say, we're going to fix you. We're going to keep you safe. I've learned, nope. Yeah. You know what? If you want to sit with me right now, you can be safe while we're talking. That's all I can guarantee. Yeah. You have to make the choices.
Absolutely.
And I can help give you some other options.
We got to stop playing the hero card.
Oh my gosh. No, Jesus is the hero.
Jesus is the hero.
Hello.
And if we're following him, we might get into some precarious situations.
Like I have.
But, we don't need to have a platform. We don't need to be famous.
We have to heal.
Yeah.
To be humble enough to be allowed
Preach it.
the right
Yeah.
to be in relationship with people that need to see Jesus and not us.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So-
that I'm just really hard about this.
So Courage for Freedom.
Right.
And people who are recognizing the problem is a lot bigger than they thought. It's a lot uglier than they thought. And
It's underreported.
It's underreported.
Because
So what-
by the time somebody reports, our current government federally took the law down, so maximum sentence minimum is 2 years. Basically, if somebody gets charged with this, in 18 months the trial will run, and if they've been held in prison,
Yeah.
they'll get time served while the victim is just starting to put their life together after going through the trial. So who's going to say, yeah, I'm going to go be a witness? And out of that, it's only a 2% conviction rate. It's underreported,
Yeah.
it's misunderstood, and it's a gross injustice when you think of the percentage of it that is happening either on a screen, in a video, or in person. I have a young girl I worked with since she was 12, that it wasn't until she was 16 that she understood what happened to her.
Wow.
You know, and sometimes I think God is protecting our brains that way. Because I know I couldn't have dealt with everything I know now when I was
Yeah.
that age. I would have taken my life, Kev.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm passionate
wouldn't?
about this
Who wouldn't?
because we are not protecting our children. And then we're going to go ahead and say this is the Board of Education's job. These are the social worker's job. These are the parents' job. Oh my gosh, they can't even supervise them during COVID on the screens. Do you know, in 2019, there was a 43% increase in human trafficking. I don't even want to know
Say it
what...
again.
2019.
Yeah.
2019 Stats Canada report reported a 43% increase in human trafficking reported in Canada.
43% increase.
Right. And then in 2020, we knew it jumped. My work increased 300%. And for me, people I never thought would make a call and call me or calling me going, somebody just tried to coerce my kid in, Call of Duty. They took them off screen. And we can't vilify video games and we can't vilify the phone. But we need to train people to say, you see this phone? Start talking to your kids when they're little. Play games with it together. Be creative.
Don't let it be your babysitter. Okay.
Don't let the criminals babysit your children.
Yeah. There's no way for this conversation to end happy.
Well, it can. You could hear, I've got a book I'm going to leave you.
Okay.
It's called Courage for Freedom, and it's a transformational book about resiliency and hope.
Yeah.
And there's 2 girls we've worked with whose lives are incredible that are now in college or raising their babies, or even my friend Kat McLeod, who is now taking everything.
I know Kat.
So she's taken everything she can, and she's training everybody she can.
Yeah. Her daughter Deirdre.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She used to be a part of the church here.
So for us, it's all hands on deck. It's not Kat or us or, Carly Church, or I could just name survivors, Tamaya and Natasha.
So
it's all of us.
This doesn't end happy if a bunch of people hear the message that you're saying and go, oh, that's awful. Oh, that breaks my heart. And then walk away. So
Same old.
Same old, right? So let's talk about disrupting that.
Yes.
And
Is our sound guy okay?
Yeah, well, what if we are to be entrenched in the love of God?
Yeah.
I want you in closing, give me 3 things that anybody can do to start to make the shift.
Here it is.
Okay.
We already figured this out.
You've got
I'm not a genius.
You got a placard.
We have a
hand.
sign. It says Project Maple Leaf, because the project in Canada is to end the buying and selling of girls and boys' children. Mm-hmm. That's That's a message I think we can all agree to, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It crosses every barrier.
Let me see that.
So what you read is on the back. It says, I want to end the buying and selling of boys and girls children in Canada, and I'm going to nominate 5 people to take a challenge to eradicate.
Okay, let me do that right now.
Oh,
And then from the video version of the podcast, we'll be able to cut it out.
which
And-
5? Who 5 are you going to challenge, though?
Well,
Think hard. Who's your mayor?
I got to pray.
Okay.
Okay. So
There you go.
5 people. Okay, so I, Kevin Rogers, want to end the buying and selling of children, boys, and girls in Canada. And I am going to nominate 5 friends or colleagues to join me and take the Eradicate Challenge 2. And
You know I'm crying now, of course.
oh well, no.
So
the reason I
this-
didn't just
this
pull
was-
out 5
this
names
was
because I
de-
really want to think
Well,
strategically.
this was
about who.
designed by survivors. And so this challenge actually came.
The sign or the logo?
The logo.
Okay, tell us about the maple leaf.
The maple leaf was designed to represent girls, boys, and children. So regardless of how they identify. But it also signifies men, women, and the black represents the misstep that we've had in protecting our Indigenous communities. And it was designed by a survivor that said, stop trying to fix the problem. You need to listen to what survivors are telling you, what kind of resources they need. They're the experts in their care. I've become an expert in my care. They can't take my story, but I'm listening to 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds that say, this happened to me. This is the new trend. This is what is happening now. So these are the resources now that are needed. We can't just throw these kids. I love violence against women shelters, homeless shelters, addiction services. But we know from all the studies that the kind of care that somebody needs out of trafficking to start their self-directed journey.
That's intense care, isn't it?
It's not enough to be trauma-informed. You have to be trafficking trauma-informed. It's different. And all the studies, governmentally, psychologically, tell us this. That if we're, you got to think of it in practical terms for anybody that's listening. If you're a mom and you're in your late 40s, 50s, and you have your daughter with you in a shelter, and she's a teen, and you introduce a 16-year-old trafficking victim, how similar is the care that they need? What is that 16-year-old going to see that she's missing? Her mom? What if that 16-year-old's been placed in the shelter to recruit that other girl out? So Children's Aid can't solve this by themselves. The government does not have enough money to solve it. And by the way, can you guys read between the lines? When governments make announcements, we've done incredible work with them. They are amazing, but they need community to work together for delivery systems, to be their voices. And when we bring a message like this, and it's really unifying, we are not criticizing anybody that is in survival mode and in, that is in prostitution.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, Canada, these are our kids. And so every person that holds a sign and they go on their social media, and by the way, traffickers aren't going to come after you. They're too busy recruiting. This sign gives us a movement. It increases and amplifies our voice.
Okay, so
And then after that, we can go to politicians and say, the will of the people, we're going to demand governmental change around buyers. So July 30th is UN Day or World Day to End Trafficking in Persons. You need to hold this sign and get as many people across all channels of social media doing it, so the government officials or funders, even those that are trafficking, might decide to take up another vocation because the gig is up. We are not tolerating this.
just back to the sign.
Yeah.
So Like, is this something that's available to anybody to get, or like how
They
does this
just
make your own sign?
you can
or?
email info@courageforfreedom.org.
Okay.
We send you a template.
We'll put all the links in our show notes.
We
so
send
that
you
people can find it.
templates. And
Okay.
even if you're from somewhere else, if you're from outside of Canada,
Yeah.
can you stand with Canada? I don't care where you are internationally. I
Yeah.
speak at the UN.
Yeah.
I have lots of UN friends and family outside. We need you to stand with us to protect these kids.
First thing that a person can do
Get a sign.
is get a sign. They can get it from your website.
No, they can get it by calling the office because we
Okay.
want to know who we're talking to.
Right.
They can get the office email. We will send you a bevy that you can select the ones that you like.
Okay.
You can put your church name on it. Mm-hmm. You can brand it with your church name. If you're a business and you're going to stand for this,
So
an organization.
that's one thing that anybody can do.
Anybody.
Okay, now
5 minutes.
Give me two more things quickly that anybody can do.
Well, if you're Christian, you need to pray, but you should already
you know what?
You should already be doing that.
Okay, but let's pray with understanding. What should we be praying? You know, I mean, and I the Holy Spirit helps us to pray.
Yeah.
So
I
not
know
gonna
what I'm
ask
praying
you,
for.
But what are you praying for?
I am praying for our capacity to work together to write resolutions to see the legislators have apolitical will like they did in Ontario. They moved legislation so fast because they all crossed the floor and came together to start protecting our kids.
Yeah.
So we are going to ask, who's paying? People that make money. How do people make money? They have JOBs. How about a code of ethics or conduct around this? And not like we have vulnerable sector screenings. Why aren't they mandatory? I'm working right now in a city where it took a young girl from 2013 to now, she was 15, to come forward with her story. And now that she really needs services. So, by the way, we do direct services as well, and I intersect and look after young girls, every need they need, regardless of whether they fully disclose. Like, if there's a carrot dangled to get them money to help them, we can't do that. So take the sign, pray. We are going to ask you after July 30th. That's why we want your email. After July 30th, we're going to give you a letter. We're going to ask you to talk to your parliamentarians, your mayor, your councillors, whoever is your boss. We're going to ask you to have the conversation about how do we help this to stop in our community.
Yeah.
Not to man shame, Kevin.
Yeah.
Because it can't go deeper, darker underground.
Yeah. And
Because there's other victims. The families.
The world right now thinks that shame is the way to cure every ill.
Oh, you read Facebook too?
Well, yeah. I
Sorry.
mean, we're in such a horrific time where people think that shame is what's needed to move the needle. And yet shame...
Well, I know what shame did to me and a needle. Kind of didn't go good for me, Cav.
No.
How many people are suicidal? What's the increase in suicide now that we're talking to people like
societal
this?
entrenchment in shame is not going to solve the problems.
No.
It's going to be that entrenchment in
We
life.
have to say to men that are buying young girls, this is societally unacceptable.
Yeah.
There is going to be a calling out on this, and you need to get help. We are not, as a society, saying it's okay to buy a kid. There are movements right now that say they're sex positive, and there's some good stuff about a sex positive movement. But can we make sure when somebody says that to us, that we know what that stands for to that person? Because to some people that talk about sex positivity, it means that if somebody, as a living being, from the time they're born to the time they die, their body is enjoying something sexually, that somebody has the right to have sex with them. Okay, that's a kid, because a kid at 6 who's being sexually stimulated has nerve endings.
Yeah.
And their body will respond and sell them out. I know this. I was a child victim of sexual abuse.
Yeah.
You live with the guilt of your body lying. You don't want something happening, but you don't have the voice or the mental capacity. Are we going to turn into a community that we soft language it down till our politically correct language is now saying, hey, wait, you signed up for the sex positive movement and consent, but we didn't put an age on that consent. So does that mean that sex between kids and adults is now okay? End times, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what the good news is?
Yeah.
We have God.
Yeah.
And he knows the hearts of those that need mercy and justice. But it is our job, and we're failing. I'm sorry. We are failing our kids. I can't leave the monkeys to run the circus. Yeah. I didn't know how to make my bed or budget, and I want to teach a kid how to overcome criminal manipulation and keep themselves safe at 13. What is wrong with us? Where's our duty to protect our children? Come on, church. Wake up.
Yeah.
Our butts are flat from sitting on the pews. Hold the sign. Add your voice. Who cares what anybody else thinks because you speak to this?
Yeah.
Who cares? But you know what? God's going to ask you why you didn't add your voice. And one more of his kids got pulled into this.
Is there one more thing that you would want people to do?
I think we need to start repenting.
Yeah.
As a church, as Christians, we have had to hide the truth about what happens to us in a fallen world and in community.
Yeah.
Some days we're as lost as the world. Yeah. And we need to start to heal, to be available for this. COVID has taught me more than anything. We can have all the buildings we want in the world and sit inside of them. I left church ministry full time as a pastor to walk outside of the church to be the church. Figure out what you're supposed to do. If you're feeling a nudge to help in this, call us. Don't go reinvent the wheel. You know, sheep that go wayward, they get picked off by the wolves. Don't go on your own and try to navigate this. Go to people. And the other thing, I was just saying this today on another cast. Don't go try to reinvent the wheel when somebody's made the mistakes that they could save you from having to make.
Yeah.
You might have to listen to them, like you might have to listen to me. But I'm always looking for a succession plan. Because the more people I can mentor to do what I do, and they can do it their way. Wow. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So July 30th, I'm going to drop this bomb. We're going to be in every province and territory, standing on a parliament's lawn, even if it's only one person, with the same amount of signs as there are parliamentarians in the building. And if you know the power of the word, we're going to stand and make a declaration. And that's the declaration.
Beautiful.
We're going to say, in Alberta, in BC, in Nunavut.
So if people want to get involved, they can go to the website, and that's the first step to...
Yeah, or go to my socials,
organized.
Courage for Freedom. Just hook up with us. We want to hear you. info@courageforfreedom.org.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, that's a good place for us to wind down.
Now that I'm all
I thought we were going to talk for 45 minutes, but we're
teary-eyed.
Twice that.
Oh my goodness!
So we might have to make this a two-parter.
God holds
but
time.
That's all right. We got lots of room. So
can I end with this?
Sure.
Well, then you can.
You
end.
can
It's
have the
your
last
show.
word, and then
No,
after
you have
your
the
last
other
word. I'll give the nod,
Is it
and then I get to do the video afterwards.
Is it 3 points and a close, and we're not there yet?
We're not there yet, no.
So I just want folks to know that this, sitting here and talking about this in your hometown, because I've always been attracted to the ministry that you've had, because I feel your heart. And you have never judged. And you have known people that know my story and have known what I've walked through. But when I put out the call, in 2013 for some people in ministry to just come to our farm and pray with us. You brought people from your community and did that.
Yeah.
And so here we are, leaking away still, and still praying, but with greater understanding. And so I think if people want to train with us, we have different levels for community or town halls. We also train frontline workers, everybody from, border people to police to trauma support people to workers in school. If you want to train with us, it's intense. You'll learn about entrenchment. And believe me, it will give you what you need to take the next step. So don't be afraid if you don't know about this, or if you do. Kevin, you jumped in with us and prayed, and look what happened. We're now known as experts in this field, and my phone does not stop ringing.
Kelly, you and I are going to be talking more. So
I
glad
think there's a house that needs to happen in your community, so we're going to pray.
I think so. Great having you here tonight, outdoors, and tomorrow morning. We got you speaking to our church and to the neighborhood, because there's no walls outside. And all I can say is let her rip.
Amen.
There are so many hidden things going on in Canadian cities and the rest of our country, for that matter. Wherever there are people, there are great difficulties. But I thank God for people like Kelly who are willing to rise to the challenge and, in the name of Jesus, bring hope and freedom to people that are in great distress. On our next episode, we're going to have a return guest, Steve Pike. And recently, I hosted a webinar with Steve Pike. And the webinar was entitled The Great Reset of Mission in the City. I heard it said that in the last year and a half, it's like we've condensed 10 years of things into this time. So much is changing. And as we think about our cities and how to reach our cities, how to be Great Commission people, winning people to follow Jesus, we need to understand that there's a great reset that needs to happen in the ways that we are reaching out to people. So come back, won't you? Until that time, I'm your host, Kevin Rogers, and you're listening to Sidewalk Skyline Podcast.